have been to at least 4.
Yeah, that's right.
When it's not cross-scheduled with other committees that I'm on.
All right, welcome everyone to the viewing audience at home. Today is Tuesday, November the 6th. This is the Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee. I do detect a quorum. We have 2 items on our agenda, and I will take them out of order. The first one that I would, if that's okay with the committee, the first one is Resolution RS 2018-1466. Approves Amendment 2 to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish and carry out infrastructure funding agreement services to benefit service recipients. Is there a motion?
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion?
The only thing I'll acknowledge here is I know we had some discussion last meeting, I believe, or maybe 2 meetings ago, about where we stand with regard to the Nashville Career Advancement Center. I think it's worth reminding the general public that a lot of the changes that have occurred there have been expressly as a result of changes to state law, and that the current director, Metro HR, neither have had really any authority to do much other than look at, easing the transition process as we have lost, by virtue of state funding flow and authority, a number of opportunities to have full-time Metro employees there. So that said, I'm happy to support this resolution.
And I think, Freddie, before you were on this committee, we kind of went over some of that when things came before us that was like about outsourcing their employees that, we're also training people to get jobs and
and it also
it's extremely frustrating for us.
It was an unfortunate moment too, because I know that many people in Metro, and I think in the general public as well, who had voted for local hire, thought that a resuscitation of the Nashville Career Advancement Center was going to be an appropriate redirection of that after local hire got preempted. And now we don't have even as many resources there. So yes, from a local governance standpoint, it has been extremely frustrating to watch. But I think where there are opportunities to make progress, this is a grant opportunity. So
we need to do what we can do to make it as good as we can make it.
Would Director Hall or Director Combs care to add anything to that discussion?
I concur. Councilman O'Connell, Councilman Murphy, we have done everything we can, and Director Hall has been a great resource over the last 2 years. We fought everything we could with the state to try to minimize the impact to Metro employees. Services have not stopped for the community, but we've had to lose Metro employees. Luckily, with this last round of layoffs, due to changes in contracts, we're actually able to rescind those layoffs, so there wasn't any layoffs recently. But yeah, we're going to continue to fight for this committee to make sure good resources are brought there. All this grant does, it doesn't actually add any funding, it just extends the date because the state put out an amendment without giving themselves time to close out the grant. So it just gives them more time to close it out.
That's good to know. Yeah.
With that, I'll move for approval.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? None. The resolution is recommended. Next is, I will go return to Resolution 2018-1430, which I had introduced 2 meetings ago. We had a very, I think, healthy discussion in Budget and Finance, which is, frankly, that's why I filed the resolution, because we've had a lot of, as certainly my predecessor as committee chair will remember, a few years ago, we, well, first of all, I will move. Let me read the caption and then I will discuss it. So they request the Metro Civil Service Commission to consider amending the pay plan for Metro Vice Mayor and council members adopted in RS 2018-1247. Is there a motion to discuss?
I will move approval.
Yeah, thank you. So
I guess we need a second technically before discussion, if you want to. I mean, we might not get a second on it.
Procedurally, do we need? We have it on the table. We can discuss it.
Yeah, and the sponsor can second.
Yeah.
okay. So I think Councilmember Murphy, you may have been absent from the committee.
I was absent last time this came up.
So
I do have some questions on procedurally what I thought had happened and evidently didn't happen. So.
Sure. So just to get everyone back kind of on the same page, when we, the council body had approved pay plans for employees, which were sort of multi-year pay plans, a couple of cycles ago. Ultimately, what we had to do with the budget situation this current fiscal year was to rescind the pay plans for basically everyone else on that legislation except for us. And so what I wanted to do is to have a resolution that would put it on the floor for us to discuss why the Metro Council portion of the pay plan was not rescinded, but everyone else's was. And so we had a really good discussion about that in Budget and Finance, had some discussion here. At that time, I had consulted with Director Hall about the time frame that she would need if we were to make a resolution to get that in front of the Civil Service Commission, which has the authority to recommend pay plans for us. We can't do our own pay plan. And so for a 2-meeting deferral, that did allow me to do a little bit more research that we can discuss here in the group, and I just also wanted folks on the floor to be able to discuss it if there is a desire. Because and one of the reasons again why I wanted to bring this forward for discussion now, it's a non-binding resolution obviously, but I wanted to sort of have this discussion now before we get all the way into a budget cycle next year, and the tone and tenor of that conversation would heat up more. It'd be helpful, I think, for us as a personnel committee and the body to make sure that we all have an understanding of how we arrived at this pay plan recommendation that we did adopt and did not rescind this past time. So did you have questions about
Yeah,
that?
I will say so, and so Shannon and Mike, y'all can probably help me through this. When we rescinded the COLA pay plan, and I guess, so remind me, when we passed when I was chair and I was sponsor of it, is the council pay plan separate from the general employees? And then I know we have like fire and police, and then we have Metro employees, and we have those separate ones.
Yeah.
Or were we included, did we have our own legislation that was elected officials or whatnot? I don't know if I'm making complete sense here.
Basically, are we distinct from any
Yeah,
of
were
those
we a
budgets
different
that-
piece of legislation than the other ones? Can you refresh me on that?
The only distinction I would make is that while it is technically true to say that the COLA was redacted from the 3-year pay plan that we just took up a few months ago, and that the council and vice mayor salaries were unaffected, but that is technically true, but that is as if council and vice mayor are given regular COLAs, and they are not.
Okay.
Right, so it does seem unseemly, but that's more coincidental than this crass effort by council members to distinguish themselves from Metro employees. I think you will also hear, I'm not weighing in, I will just tell you, this came up at Budget and Finance as well, that Civil Service Commission in their last sort of iteration on this has noted the duration of years that pass between council salary raises, and some comparison to peer cities, we are lacking in those respects. So,
And so, I guess remind me this, so in the pay plan, and it's been a couple of years since y'all sat down with me as personnel chair and kind of went over it with me in much more detail than kind of the rest of the committee. That pay plan for Metro employees was just COLAs, but I thought it had step increases and all of that. And so while we pulled out the COLA, the step increases are still there, correct?
So a pay plan is not just COLAs, to your point, right? And STEP is just a component of merit-based increase. That's not part of the pay plan, right? The city can allocate funding for merit-based increases. Typically, you get merit-based increases one of two ways. You are either on a step, which means you go up to the next increment step in the pay plan, or you are considered open range, right? You're not guaranteed a certain amount, but it's based paid for performance, right? So you're one or the other, but they're both merit-based increases, and you're either one or the other. The pay plan includes all kinds of changes, and this pay plan, we had not done a pretty large compensation study for years. We had been in a bad recession. There was no reason to do one because we didn't have funding to do anything with it. So once we did do a big compensation study, this is when I was still over here with you all, HR performed a very large compensation study, and it came back with lots of recommendations, right? Because there was some deferred maintenance, for lack of a better term. It also includes, hey, we should tweak these classifications because they're a little out of whack.
And I think we
Council
did
members
that
were part
our
of it.
first year, right? We tweaked
So
those.
there were so many changes because it had been
been
so long
broken up.
that it kind of spread over a couple of years. So there were significant lift and edits to the pay plan as part of 2015. And one of those edits could also be not just for, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I almost always have that on silent. So it could be tweaks to classifications. Right now, all of a sudden, these IT classifications really are undercompensated for market. We need to tweak those up. Those are also part of the pay plan, if that makes sense. So adjustments to pay is a little different than open range, but they're all in the pay plan. So what essentially happened was when we rescinded years 2 and 3 of the pay plan, which is what happened. It took away the COLAs, but it didn't undo the increases that resulted. For example, if this classification needed to go up, or we needed to tweak the DP scale for this particular classification, those remained in place.
And so you might not be able to know this off the top of your head, but so so we've got our pay plan here for employees and with the steps and the COLAs. And so then if you look at what we what the council elected officials would be getting starting next term, is that next term number, so I'm going to try to say this as clearly as it's not in my head, but okay, so what we get paid now and what y'all studied what is recommended of where we should be paid, did you then add to that basically the cost of living that was part of the pay plan for the rest of the employees? So what I'm asking is if we could have, right, did you, yes, that's a much smarter word. So was it indexed up for the next term from where we are today with if those 3% COLA stayed?
It's possible. I don't know off the top of my head.
Could we get that information?
Oh, sure.
And one of the things that I think was helpful for me, and I think would give comfort to the rest of the body, and because pay plans are so complicated, I mean, again, this is why, I'm not working this bill politically. I haven't reached out to employee representation, but I just want to make sure that we as a body are comfortable with the decision that we've made and can sort of explain it to constituents and make sure that we are still comfortable. I think most of us are still comfortable with it, but the Metro Council has not had a pay increase since 2003.
Yes. Can I help summarize some of that? And I'll
Sure.
tie in some really helpful comments that Mr. Jamison had offered in Budget and Finance when this came up a couple of. So it is kind of apples and oranges a little bit, right? All employees that are in the pay plan are set with their classifications and ranges, are subject to open range increases and merit-based increases of any kind. There are COLAs that are associated from year to year. None of that stuff applies to council members. Council members' pay is set, and it is a firm set amount. It does not get modified. It does not get
We don't
subject
get a
to
year-over-year COLA.
Right.
no cost of living adjustments, COLAs, because I want to say that two different ways because I've realized a lot of people do not understand that cost of living adjustment is COLA.
Yes, yes.
I've run into that a lot. You're not subject to merit-based increases. You're not subject to COLAs at all. None of that. Not only that, you cannot change your pay for your term.
Right.
You can only change it for a future prospective term. So not only can we make modifications on the pay plans to adjust employee pay as appropriate on an annual basis, you guys only get the opportunity once every 4 years at minimum, right, for a future perspective.
Right.
So all of that being said, a couple of council members had requested some information when this first came up. And some of this I shared with Councilman Withers at his request. How long had it been since the council pay had been changed? The current rate of pay of $15,000 began in September 2003. So it has been 16 years.
Do we know if that was market rate then?
I suspect it was.
Okay.
That was also, so that adjustment came. So I suspect that was the case because typically they would follow. And the recommended rate is in line with what was recommended by our compensation consultants, Deloitte, working with our staff, also reaching out to peer cities.
Right.
So we're looking at what other council members, what their duties are, how they're classified, what their pay is, do they have other compensation that comes into play, reimbursement accounts, travel expense accounts,
Pension,
all
insurance.
that stuff. Right. So they assess the whole shooting match, but we're not only doing it with our consultant, we're also looking at peer cities and we're looking at you guys. So this is not done in a vacuum. So the pay that's been recommended that's currently scheduled to go into effect next fall is totally within $1,000 of an appropriate amount as recommended by Deloitte in 2014.
I think it's also worth noting, one, we might find out later tonight whether or not anybody here is able to seek a third term. But at the moment, this pay plan is for a future council. It is not for ourselves. We can't vote ourselves beyond the wishes of voters.
Right.
A pay
Right.
increase, and a good dozen or more council members are actually termed out and would not benefit from this. So I think that is also worth noting.
And I think, so if you also look at the number of voters, like people who vote in our elections and the population in our districts, because we all know that our districts are around the same amount of people, but we all have widely different number of voters and different constituencies and activeness and things like that. I think we have all noted, whether we are first termers or second termers, that, and I think all of the administration, everybody that has to deal with us has been like, whoa, y'all have more on you than you've ever had before. And so, this is something that, as y'all know, has been very tough for me personally, because of my professional work of representing employees in other areas, but also the commitment that I made as chair that you now get to serve at your pleasure, I guess, till you run away from us. And so I guess where I'm torn is, whether I'm reelected or not, whoever the next person in this seat is, your seat, Freddie's seat, or one of the term limited council members, I think that they deserve some more compensation because of the amount of time that our job is now requiring us to do. And I mean, not to point you out, I saw your post on Facebook of how you and at your place of business, you are now kind of covering a job and a half. Not to get into your pay and your negotiations with your employer, but changing jobs literally this coming week. It's a lot of this I've been thinking about is time and compensation, and I feel like this job is requiring a lot more time than it has in the past. And so I feel like whoever comes and sits in this seat, whether it be me or someone else, there's the time commitment and things is different than it was in the past.
So I have a related concern, which is that because this is nominally a part-time position, a failure to allow for council to have any form of compensation increase means that it puts attaining the role of serving in this way further and further from, I think, working Nashvillians.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is a problem for me.
Well, one of the things that, and again, with this research that Director Hall provided that's been helpful for me, I mean, again, is that in looking at our peer cities, it's different. Every city is a little different, right? So they've got huge cities with very small council members. They've got smaller cities with more numbers in terms of the number of constituents served, and the pay ranges are all over the place. But to me, what helps me to get more comfort defending the pay raise that for the future council that we did not rescind is that even within that range, this proposed amount sort of only kind of brings us up to midway. We're not like above the median based on what our peers do. And apparently in almost all of our peer cities, they're also part-time, which was helpful to me. I know coming from Chicago, in Chicago there are 50 and it's full-time, you have a brick and mortar office and staff. But most of our peer cities are similar to us. Louisville, Indianapolis, a lot of those kind of cities that are metro, but the council members are part-time.
So two things is
Could I recognize Director Hall real quickly?
Just a couple of observations that I think are relevant if I'm sitting in your shoes. Over the same time period, from 2003, when you last had your pay raise, until now, employees have gotten, just for COLAs, not merit-based increases, which most employees are subject to those every year. The COLAs alone are 21.1% over that same time frame. So their pay just on cost of living adjustment, not merit-based, has been
Is up
21% versus the last time you had it. Two, because yours is a fixed pay, just from a compensation, right, perspective as an HR professional. As soon as we set your pay, because it can't be indexed up by COLAs, literally the following year and then the subsequent years in the term, we are already, from a compensation perspective, not
Losing
properly
ground.
compensated.
Right.
That's right.
And that was kind of, I guess, what I was getting to is like we set this off of whatever, 14 or whatever. And so boom, we're already 4 years behind when the next term comes in.
And I did check my notes. I do believe it did, even though the notes and these recommended pay increases were from 2014, we did, I think it was tilted down a little bit from the average and then indexed up for anticipated COLAs. So I just checked my notes.
Okay. So that's good to know.
Question there. But during that time frame, obviously we rescinded the COLA from this year. But over that same time frame, 21% COLAs for employees. Again, you're already out of date as soon as the pay is set from a true compensation perspective.
So by the end of that term, they're 4 years behind.
I mean, if we are being technical, by the end of the first year.
Yeah.
By the second year of the pay being in effect.
So I wanted to echo Freddie's point about, a body of your average citizens, just like you are entitled to a jury of your peers. We should, we want council to look reflective. And I think something that we have seen at the state legislature level is, and they do have full-time staff assigned to each one of them, where we all share limited resources. I think what I personally have seen, and happy to make a matrix of this for y'all at some point, is a lot of the legislators have become people who own their own business and work for themselves. And we're seeing less and less of blue-collared elected officials and things like that as we're here on election night. And that has changed the playing field up there. And it's changed the balance of power with lobbyists and other things like that as well. So I think that's something to echo, Freddie. I think you're exactly right. I've been very lucky to be self-employed over the past couple of years and do this, but I'm about to enter into having an employer. Secondly, I think a point to bring up too is we don't propose the pay for us. That's something where others,
We didn't design this. We're not voting it. It doesn't apply to us.
And I can tell you, as personnel chair, I did not say, well, here's the number that would fit my budget. Please, Mayor Barry, send that to civil service, and let's get this rolling on through. And then again, echoing on the staff is, okay, so if we're not going to compensate council members for the time and the increased time that they are giving to this job, as another self-employed council member comes in here, and I know how much that she does, and again, the give take of our business.
We have a couple minutes till we need to
That's
wrap.
fine. I'll wrap it up. Is then if we don't properly compensate council members, then we need to up our staff.
This will not be a popular observation, I think, among peers too, but if we're actually talking about fiscal responsibility, our access to health benefits,
That's right.
especially for all former council members, is a far greater drag on the operating budget than a modest pay increase.
That's right.
So that's also worth noting.
So I will entertain a motion. What I would like to do as the sponsor is, like I said again, I wanted to be sure that, like, we had a piece of legislation that had a bunch of employee things on it. We rescinded everything off of that pertained to employees and not ourselves. And I wanted to make sure that we, particularly as a committee and as a body, were able to have a discussion about that and get everyone, make sure that we're all comfortable with that before we head into a budget, and especially that we all have the information that we need to explain that. So what I would like to do is to enable other members who were not able to join this committee to be able to have discussion on the floor. Although I would certainly also entertain a motion to defer indefinitely. But
I would so move.
But I personally, like I said, would appreciate an opportunity if there are members.
If you want it on the floor,
that
that's fine. I will say I can't support the resolution, so.
As the sponsor, you just said you want two different things, and as legislators.
Well, I said you would entertain.
Right, well, you said you would entertain, which I think, when the pay plan gutting the COLAs came through here, it did not get a second. And I think that, and I think that sent a strong message to a lot of people. And so I guess as a sponsor of this, as a fellow legislator of yours here, colleague, I'd ask you to kind of pick which horse you would rather have out of here. if you want to make the motion to indefinitely defer, I think you should make that. If you want us to have this debate on the floor, then I think you should make that motion.
There'd be a recommendation for disapproval.
Or, I mean, I think at this point, as the sponsor of the bill, I think
How
between
about-
the two of us, you could make all
Sure.
three motions: disapprove, indefinitely defer, or approve here.
Procedurally, Mike, which would be better? I mean, if we have a committee recommendation for disapproval, there's no opportunity to comment or debate on the floor, is that correct?
It's generally how Rule 23 works, so what you could do, and I think your colleagues have faith in you, that you would anticipate a deferral motion on the floor and request either an up or down approval by this body, and then have full discussion with your colleagues as you seek, and then deferral.
So if we had a recommendation for disapproval, it would still go to the floor for more discussion?
Correct.
That would be my request. I would
Make
like to
the-
make a motion
make
for
the
a recommend
Does
disapproval.
it need to be moved to disapprove? Or
Right, you can just
You
move
just
approval.
withdraw.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor, so I can anticipate my vote.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure that we were able to have this conversation because it gets political and complicated, and everything about pay plans is complicated. So, all right. Any other business before
motion
the
are we
committee?
voting on?
I think we've got a motion and a second for approval, and I'm going to, if the vote is called, I will vote against.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve.
No, the motion
already
is on the floor. You are the chair, so you need to call for the vote or call to adjourn.
And what motion did I bring to the floor?
The motion is to approve.
Okay,
But,
okay, so I'll bring a motion to approve.
all right, well, we just need to call for the vote at this
Right.
point. It's
And
already-
call
The
for the
motion
vote?
was made,
I-
you seconded it.
Okay,
I vote against.
I'm gonna abstain.
okay. And one abstention. All right. Thank you. We're adjourned.